Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Happy Thanksgiving week.
Same to you. Yeah, it's just one-on-one, but I'm not sure what is um happening with. I know that there was some trouble with the executive committee meeting yesterday, so I'm just
Yeah,
gonna time and see if folks join. We do have a couple of members of the public in the audience, it looks like, so
yeah,
hopefully.
I noticed that. Great, thank you. city staff, I say we give this until 1:15, and if the other appointed commissioners do not join, we may end up ending the meeting.
Okay.
Understood.
I see that Chair Nolan Eccles has joined on the attendee side. Chair Nolan Eccles, I think you need to use the link that's in the email, in the calendar invite that makes you a panelist.
My team is working to make that transition this year. Let's see if we can transfer that over.
Okay, great. Just noticed that. Thank you.
Thank you for noticing.
There's our chair.
How are we, Commissioner Sheridan?
I'm doing well. Hello, nice to hear you again.
Nice to hear you too. We have Commissioner Hamilton. How are you?
I am doing quite well. Thank you for asking.
We have Commissioner Gray. I haven't heard you guys in a while. It's been a minute.
Yeah, how was your trip?
It was good. I will not complain about it. I got to interact with, business and government officials over there. It's typically what I do when I'm in motion. So that was all good. And then, a little bit of play, fun is always okay.
So we have a couple of members of the public who are in attendance. So we should get moving if we want to talk about a few things.
Am I still an attendee on the other side, or do I need to?
No.
Okay, so it's fine. Okay. I guess we can start, Commissioner Sheridan, with where we were before we went out of the country together. Thoroughly unplanned. But since we were last here, there's been a lot of discussion on what should or shouldn't be occurring in different meetings and formats and forums. So I really didn't know if this work group or the other work groups or any other meetings were still occurring. I planned on just revisiting everything in the public meeting forum, having the motions entertained and doing the formal process of adding all things to whatever needs to be added so that we can proceed without any further delay, derail, distraction. But since we're here, we can pick up where we left off. I mentioned the structural component of all of the articles having the same layout. You were pretty pertinent about the pronouns, and Commissioner Boa was pretty pertinent about the aspect of the language of the articles and its wording. And our Commissioner Hamilton and Commissioner Gray were very clear with how the document is used pertaining to the government's current structure as a governing document is used to manage all of its functions. And that statement alone, I think, or would have been great at the October meeting to restate, because I think you mentioned it too when I revisited transcripts, Commissioner Sheridan, that there needs to be some certainty on what the charter is for all the commissioners. I think it's a little bit unclear, but I've read it in its totality when we got it. Have you read the entire charter?
Uh,
Commissioner Sheridan, do you understand
a few,
its position?
several times now.
Okay.
I've read it. I read it once prior to even entertaining the idea of being appointed as a commissioner. A couple times before that. Also, once officially appointed as a commissioner, and then as we got into our work groups. And I know that I don't believe Commissioner Bobo was at the November meeting either. So I think all three of us were not there, and so we're not able to share out or report out at that meeting some of the discussions that we had had. I also have had a chance to read through the transcripts and watch the previous videos, and one thing that not necessarily for a discussion or for a decision at this meeting, but when we are all together again in the first week of December, the would like to revisit just the process for soliciting feedback from the community and from the public as it relates to modifications and amendments to the city charter. Um, I because we weren't at the November meeting. I don't know if any of the other commissioners we weren't able to talk about the pronouns and the changes that I'd like to see just as this initial change, but we can revisit that in December.
I agree. Commissioner Hamilton, there was mention that there was an ordinance passed or a vote positioned pertaining to the updating of language and pronouns and things passed some time ago. Do you know when that was?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do you know if we can find out when that was and who would have been responsible or charged with that?
I did not look into that because it is not relevant to your work. And ordinances do not affect the charter. The way that it ranks is that the charter, is state law, is the charter, and then it's ordinance. The charter trumps every ordinance, and no ordinance affects the charter unless it is made a charter amendment. Like, the ordinance that developed this commission had to go on a ballot initiative to the voters in order to amend the charter.
Right.
Even if there were an ordinance to say everything's gender neutral, it wouldn't make any difference to your work.
Okay. So, but we do, or we can have access to anything that was passed pertaining to language updates, pronoun updates, or anything of the sort that was supposed to be done in the past pertaining to the charter. Or are you saying that there was nothing passed pertaining to the charter related to language, pronouns, verbiage, wording, any of the sort?
Not to my knowledge. What was
Okay.
mentioned at the November meeting was an ordinance, which would not impact the charter unless it went to the voters. And I'm not familiar with any gender or pronoun amendment to the charter ever going to the voters.
Okay. So Commissioner Sheridan, we are up to, thank you, Commissioner Hamilton. We are up to either continue to discuss where we were before we went on out the country or start from here. I have since brainstormed or created a list of recommendations pertaining to the articles that this work group has been assigned. But again, I have plans on presenting in its totality at the December meeting pertaining to what the structure of all of this should look like, and we all get on some kind of agreed upon consensus for the progression. I think there has been, these work groups were originally designed for the sake of working on the articles, and it's sounding like there's been these work groups have been used for the sake of grievances of some kind, of some sort, but they were designed to work on the articles, to work at the recommendations and amendments in order to have something to bring to the public forum, the public meetings. This is why having said persons that have input on a specific set of articles was organized the way that it was. So I don't think any efforts have permitted public input on the articles themselves. I think we as a commission are probably not using the work groups in the best way to get to what the recommendations should be that include the public. Because I've already been informed that there's public attendees here. These meetings are public. The public has the ability to access them, partake in them, provide comment, participate with us. I just don't think we're using the work groups as they could be used for the sake of the articles.
And my understanding, maybe it's a different type of different understanding. My understanding was that each work group would, for lack of a better term, try to develop some domain expertise or subject matter expertise without becoming a scholar on these individual articles, subject matter expertise related to these articles, so that when we do come together as a larger group, we have some depth of knowledge. Also, to go along with that, any recommendations that we might see or want to bring forward to the larger group related to some of these articles. I think that that's also pertinent. I think one of the challenges is so many of these articles, it's difficult to make a recommendation on a specific article when it probably impacts other articles. Again, I'll use language as an example, right? Or pronouns and language as an example. There's no reason that the selected articles that we're looking at, that I had no intention, and of course I know everybody understands this. My intention isn't just to change the language in this set of articles that assigned to this work group. It's a recommendation across the board. And so I don't know if for the future work of these working groups or the structure of these working groups, if there's going to be additional recommendations that we make, or if we use the commission meetings as meetings to surface recommendations and then enter into some of the discourse as a full commission. Because that way we also are able to get the brains of the other commissioners that are participating.
To my knowledge, that's how I wrote it down. That's what we discussed in the September and October meeting, and it isn't seeming to be going in said path, and I'm unsure of why that's occurring. But the recommendations, like you stated, is what we're supposed to be coming up with in our work group meetings with the public, with the non-voting members that we are working with, and collectively determine what items should we look at based on these articles. And then collectively, as a commission, a total commission, we determine how that impacts, or if it impacts, or if it should impact all the articles. That was my impression.
That makes sense.
But again, it's been seeming to be used as some form of grievance space, and it's just not, to my knowledge, what the ordinance permits, allows, requested for these efforts. But pertaining to our particular articles, beyond the structure framework that we came up with, that I wanted to present to the total commission, you all's language and pronoun updates that we want to present to the total commission, for those three things to be applied or discussed for all the articles across the board. So my first recommendation is those items. And then my second recommendation is that we start to look at the true and honest structure of St. Louis City government as it stands, as it impacts the charter. So I think
to look at, to look at the structure of the government as it impacts the charter, or the charter as it impacts the structure of government?
I would say both. So I would recommend, I don't know if Commissioner Hamilton can have the staff to put the organizational chart on the monitor for the December meeting, but the confusion rests in how, as you mentioned, how all the articles apply to the organizational structure and how these things impact one another or each other.
What organizational chart are you looking? for?
The city government organizational chart. I think it's one in our drive already.
Okay, let me take a look.
Okay. And what articles are assigned to which structural component? And so we can just start to see a bigger picture. And I think the big picture is what the total commission needs to see in order to start determining what recommendations should be discussed or put forth or determined beyond, framework and pronouns and language.
Sure.
The real work is within seeing the big picture and understanding the structural components of city government and how the charter impacts those things.
Right. I would agree.
So that's my second recommendation. After listening to the last commission meeting, I just think we need to go back to the drawing board and start with seeing the structure and understanding how the charter impacts the structure of our government. I had some research done pertaining to the history of City of St. Louis government put into our work group drive.
Mm-hmm.
And I had several different charters pulled and put there as well. And a few different just research based informational concepts so that we can truly understand the work of what this calls for. Yeah. So those are my recommendations for us, I guess, to discuss, and then, you can have whatever your recommendations are as well. But I think the next phase is to look at the structure and concentrate on the structural dynamic of what we're looking at and what we're working with as a total commission.
Yeah, I think that there's a need for maybe some level setting at the next commission meeting, public meeting, with the full commission, to make sure we're progressing in the right manner. We are, December will be our fourth meeting, if I'm counting correctly. And January is when I think January is when we're slated to have our first public hearing and deeper public comment. And I would really like to see us have a clear path forward, so that we're able to not only do the work of the people, but also make the most of the time that we have in a very truncated window.
Yes, because I think that we also need to understand that the ordinance provided us with 1 year in the time frame, and no one here orchestrated or regulated that 1 year time frame or that benchmark of a process that we have to operate this work in. And I think that too probably needs to be mentioned, communicated, even though I think that it has, but I think just like what you said pertaining to what we have to do progressively moving forward, we are now 4 meetings in, we have 8 months left. There was mention of aggression with the timeline. I don't think that we have a choice in the matter of the timeline. I think it was just set for us and we have to operate within it.
And I don't think it's impossible to operate within it. It just requires efficiency and order.
Correct.
And I think it also requires the 3 executive members of the commission to not be gone at the same time, which I take responsibility for that as well. I feel really bad about that, but I don't think that will happen. I don't think that will happen again. I would like to use part of the time on December just to level set and because I have, outside of this working group, I haven't had a chance to hear from, and missing the November meeting, I haven't had a chance to hear from our fellow commissioners yet. So I don't know any feelings or thoughts that they may have, but I do know that I'm a bit concerned about the timeline. I totally know we can work within it, but I don't want us to lose any more momentum as it relates to getting the work done.
Yes, I think we're on the same page with that. I came into this with it probably, no, I'm not gonna say.
We'll see if we get everybody back in.
I think what's happened is there was another work group that was scheduled to meet at 1:30. And I think they're trying to start that meeting and attending our meeting. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So we may not be able to get folks back. So I sent an email.
I think I just responded to Chair Nickel Eccles, and if there's no additional business to discuss, I can just go ahead and conclude the meeting.
Okay.
I think we're okay.
Let the other group get started then.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Good luck.
All right. Bye-bye.